Welcome to Audio Gyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers, and creatives of all types. Here's your host, Kedar Nimkar.
Crafts is an integral part of experimental creativity and a conduit for imagination of forms. Today, I have Devika Krishnan with us on AudioGAN. She's a founder of Studio Sattva and Art House. Devika graduated in ceramics from NID and did MBA from ISB, and since then has been relentlessly working in varied areas of design and empowerment. She continues to work for Daskar, Ranthambore, where she trains new groups of artisans. One of the topics we'll be discussing today is commitment to Kashmir, that is enabling young and eager Kashmiris to set up their crafts business with suitable market linkages to sustain themselves and those who employ. So thank you, Devika, for giving your time, and it's a real honor to have you on audio again.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Well,
It's absolute pleasure and honor is an understatement for me.
no, I'm like yeah, this is a very small project as compared to the projects that you have been engaged with and doing for last 20, 30, 40 years maybe. So this conversation I mainly wanted to document in form of a case study, predominantly commitment to Kashmir. And to get into those nuances, maybe we can start off with a more broader question to understand the landscape of art and craft in the country. What has been your observations? And then I have like very particular questions with respect to Kashmir. So yeah, I mean that's
Sure,
that's
sure.
the that's the. So yeah, you can start by telling like what I believe real India is still like 60% plus villages.
Yes, yes.
So if you can give a sense of the broad landscape with respect to art and crafts in the country, and we'll
Sure.
we'll open up more questions.
Yeah. But I my knowledge is rather limited. However, whatever little I know from my experience of the past 30 years, I'll share. Like you said, yeah, close to 70% of our country actually resides in what I would call as lesser geographies, not even villages, because they could be B towns, they could be even just the slums and lesser geographies within large urban metros. And a great part, close, a huge part of our population does not have the sort of privileges that you and I have.
Mm.
Unfortunately, what we read in the papers and what is forever projected in the media is only stuff that is relating to us and catering to us. And this larger we, larger India that is often ignored. Agriculture, like we know, is our largest occupation, and occupations that are allied to agriculture traditionally for the past how many ever thousands of years are also the ones that are thriving along with agriculture. और कुछ नहीं तो हमारे पास किसान हैं, हमारे पास, there's one entire larger chunk of population for whom their occupation takes up their entire life.
Mm.
So when the rest of the world went through these multiple recessions in the recent past with the housing bust in the US and the IT bubble bust and whatever, really it didn't hit India that much because how much lower can we bottom out
Correct.
in one sense, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Today's scenario is different. We're actually shaking our foundation right now. I don't know if that's a good thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there are many, many questions. And along with agriculture comes craft, because traditionally, when somebody is not sowing or harvesting, one is actually creating. So
Wow.
when you look at crafts from that lens, whether it is weaving or metalsmithy or pottery, these were all seasonal traditions that sort of dovetailed themselves into the larger tradition of agriculture. So we are an agrarian society even today. And whatever you might want to say about all the other various manufacturing sectors and automotive and IT and falana tikana, we cannot ignore that primarily we are agrarian. And because we are agrarian, we are craft based because it's an allied
Yeah.
setup.
Correct.
Weaving, textile based craft, for example, is the second largest occupation after agriculture. But yet, where are we on the global, global scenario with our textile exports, handmade textile exports? Why
Hmm.
are our looms shutting down at such rapid rates? Because we are not giving our age old, trusted, viable occupations the, the value they deserve. We've got
Correct.
living crafts, like if you take Ajrak, for example, the Ajrak printing, it's
Hmm.
from Indus Valley. We have examples of Ajrak printed fabric that is 3,600 years ago old.
Wow.
We've got a shroud on Tutankhamun's tomb, which is Ajrak, which has Ajrak block printing. Trade was thriving then, and what was being traded out of India was largely cotton textile. The Greeks, the Romans, everybody wanted, whoever wanted Indian muslin, Indian textiles, and that brought us our revenues. And today we've just abandoned it.
Yeah. I've read somewhere we were about 6% of the GDP for the world
Yes,
population. So yeah, it
yeah,
was
yeah.
quite a significant number. And
Yeah, and where are we today? And we're still chasing foreign dreams when we have a wealth that is happening right under our noses. We're not willing to look at it,
hmm,
and many people are entering the sector, but it's not enough. We are still at just the tip of the iceberg. We need hundreds of thousands of people to actually work and engage and build these bridges that would bring the glory back to our agrarian and our craft sector, the glory that we had at one point.
correct. So you beautifully sorry to interrupt, but you beautifully mentioned that one is while one is not sowing or harvesting, they're creating craft, which is sort of very interesting to know because my the topic today is like Kashmir, and if you can give some insights about how come Kashmir is so fertile when it comes to crafts, because is it because agriculture is not as heavily exercised as in other parts of the country back then or today?
It's actually quite the reverse. It is because privatization hasn't come to Kashmir as much as it has infiltrated the rest of the country. If we look at crafts in the rest of the country, I think it was giving subsidies to mills and other manufacturing sectors at the cost of handmade. And some geography like Kashmir, which was at that point, and I could be wrong in this. This is just my personal observation. I
Mm,
need experts to look into this field.
mm,
But from whatever I have experienced and I have studied and analyzed, is at that point in the late 80s, early 90s, when the rest of India got liberalized, a very thriving economy. And I think Jammu and Kashmir had one of the highest GDPs in state-wise in India till 1989 with their carpet exports and other exports that they had. That geography completely shut itself out from the rest of the world because of
mm,
insurgency. Yeah. So
mm,
while the rest of us got our Googles and our Amazons and our, Levi's and our Coke and Pepsi and whatever else, all the plants and the machinery and the offices and the MNCs coming up, there is zero privatization in Kashmir. Obviously, nobody would want to invest in a conflict land. And so it's almost like a capsule preserved in time.
mm,
And I would think that's the only positive light, that little silver lining in the gray cloud of insurgency, that we see that so many craft and traditional practices were preserved, and it was the only thing people knew, and it was the only avenue people could access agriculture and craft. So it remains still that more than 60% of the households in the valley are associated with some avenue of craft or the other, whether it's trade, manufacture, whatever, but they are associated with some craft or the other.
mm, mm.
So it's quite the reverse. It's the lack of privatization that safeguarded our heritage
Yeah,
in a conflict.
yeah, it's a tragedy, but yeah, it has also the positive side to it.
Yes, yes.
Correct.
You'll hear time and again. I'm a hopeless positivist. Okay, hopeless, hopeless optimist.
And before moving to commitment to Kashmir project, has anything changed post 370?
Uh, well, it got really bad with 370, with the whole blackout that happened for months together. And
Mm.
really, nothing much has changed on ground, other than promises having changed. Politically, there's been a huge change because all the smaller regional parties that were pitted against each other have all suddenly uh, joined and aligned, and they've got this one common enemy. But it's only a matter of time that they'll be infighting again. And so a lot of the issues that I see happening in the valley are political in nature, and they're driven by politics. Mm, from all the interactions that I've had with people, and I'm a very, very chatty soul, so I make friends everywhere. The average pulse of the youth there, or the youngsters that I work with who are in their 20s, or the school kids that I've interacted with, they just want normalcy.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
just want to get on with life. They're like, bas bahut ho gaya. We are, we need to have access to good education. We need to have access to travel. We want to see places. We want to sell. We want to buy. We want to, they just have the normal, regular aspirations that we all have. I think a larger part also, a contribution is their access to social media,
Hmm.
which also was shut out for months together last year. Even now
Yeah.
they're on 3G, but I think Geo is being rolled out, some Geo cable, something, something. But
Hmm.
whatever it is, what
But that
I,
will have, yeah, that will have its own repercussions because then it's like a monopoly. Then it will be
yeah, yeah,
challenged.
yeah. So all these things, I think I would I look at all of this cyclical and in a more philosophical way. We start, so I think we are heading nationwide, or possibly even globally, into a monopolized world.
Hmm.
The sooner we come to terms with it, the better for us, because frameworks, so this is a larger, a monopolized framework is a framework. The sooner we understand it, the sooner we can manipulate it and work our way around it.
Correct. Correct.
Again, the optimist.
वैसे भी जनरली बोला है ना कि कलयुग की तरफ जा रहा है तो कलयुग में मोर होमोजेनाइजेशन हो जाएगा एवरीथिंग विल बिकम फ्लैट एंड या दैट्स वेयर द डाइवर्सिटी विल गो एंड यू लाइक या वापस इवोल्यूशन
So what I feel is that in the um, we don't. So that's the whole thing. I keep telling people, we don't have to do a this or that. The world is never black and white. Even in a monopolized world, there will be so many shades of gray that we need to celebrate those grays. How do we still operate in a black and white world while still safeguarding our shades of gray? I don't know, in a very abstract sense, which means you will have to you will have to redefine your gray in its amount of black and white content, but still it retains its grayness. You know what I'm saying? So how do we protect our diversity within the monopoly is what we need to start looking at. Not lament the fact that we will lose our diversity, nor happily abandon it singularity, but within that monopoly, how do we celebrate diversity? What are
करेक्ट
the channels that so everything can exist together?
yeah. I don't know whether I'm getting my history right, but I think when Alexander was conquering, we had Buddha on this side. So there's the both the sides are balancing out somewhere or the other in the larger
Huh.
scheme of things. Cool.
Huh.
Yeah. So like, what is commitment to Kashmir? If you can talk about that and how does it work? How like active?
So commitment to Kashmir was this. I mean, Mr. Jain, who set up the Crafts Museum in Delhi. and his wife Devaki Jain have worked relentlessly for the in the craft sector as the voice of the artisans, in showcasing our craft styles across decades. And he, towards the end of his years, he had this grand vision of actually doing something for Kashmir, pulling it out of its what should I say, the state that it was in, and give people hope. And how do you give people who are constantly caught between terrorists and military and this and that and this party and that party? And it's no longer an India issue or a Pakistan issue or anything. It's a global issue. We don't want that wound to heal because there is somebody is benefiting somewhere from that wound.
Mm.
And as a result, these millions of people are paying the price for it. So how do we generate hope within the system? And that's how Commitment to Kashmir started. His wife Devaki Jain took it forward, and they set up a trust in Delhi. And I think there are 6 or 7 trustees. I'm not too sure how many. There's Ritu Kumar, and there's Manju Nurula, Laila Taibji, Gulshan Nanda, Devaki Jain, of course, and Rati Jha. Um, I don't know if I've missed any. I'm sorry, but and these are all these names. They're all stalwarts. They're all like doyens in the craft sector themselves. Each of them has one big thing, something that they've done towards hand skills and
Mm.
design.
Mm.
And so somebody is associated with Dastakar or Cottage Emporium or NIFT or Craft Revival Trust and Crafts Council of India. So they brought this together. They had a bit of funding to begin with. Mr. Jain had actually kept aside money, and they did a first cohort, I think, in 2012 or 13, yeah, before the flood. They
Okay.
did one cohort, and it was very small. They actually disbursed about 4 lakhs or whatever it was. I forget the money. Shruti had mentioned it to me. I wasn't a part of it then.
Mm.
And they worked with Craft Development Institute, which is our ground partner in Kashmir. So you can't operate in a geography like Kashmir without having somebody local supporting you. And in that local support, Commitment to Kashmir found a fantastic partner in Craft Development Institute, which has been working in providing business and design inputs to artisan communities in the valley and making them into independent entrepreneurs for like decades now. And
Mm.
so they held workshops there, and then they disbursed money to these people towards the end of 2013 or early 2014. And then, of course, the flood happened. And
Mm.
the flood has been like, it's like when I work in Kutch, um, everybody, their timeline is before the earthquake, bhukam se pehle and bhukam ke baad. So
Mhm.
Kashmir now is like, even I catch myself saying this because I've been working in Kashmir since 2010. I also say Sehlab se pehle, Sehlab ke baad. It's almost like, before Christ. And
Mm.
so,
It's surprising because they must have gone through so many bad patches and so many events. Still, like the flood seems to be like one of the pivoting points. I mean, it's interesting to know that as well.
yeah, it was a pivoting point because it was a flood like no other flood. And Kashmir by now is so used to being beaten. Um, they're the most positive souls. The people of Kashmir are the most positive. Like when we went into a lockdown in March, and it didn't open up all of April, and it started running into May. And if I would get someday, I would get really frustrated with my work. I just had to pick the phone and call up a Kashmiri mentee of mine and speak to them. They were so positive. They said, "Arey, ye to acha hi hua na."
Mhm.
They had a nice positive take on things because they are so used to lockdowns. Yeah,
Mm. Mm.
they on an average year, my friend and I were calculating. This friend of mine, Ramneek, and I, we run a project of our own called Shepherd Crafts Kashmir, which is we are working with the Gujar Bakarwal community there.
Mm.
And so there was a year we we have opened and shut our project 6 times already because we are in a difficult geography, uh, and there's no support that we get. We're just running it out of our pockets,
Mm.
and with our wits about it. But
Mm.
they typically have like only 80 working days,
80 work.
80 to 9, 80 to 90 school days in a year.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Just go and check. You'll get the statistics on any of these government websites, and just see from say 2004 till now. There may have been 2 or 3 years when they had decent, like maybe 120 working days or 130 school days. Otherwise, schools are shut, colleges are shut, offices are shut. There is no private enterprise. What is a person supposed to do? So these kids, I mean, and then you talk of how are you keeping a man occupied? How are you keeping a child occupied? We are not looking at these absolutely basic ground realities. बच्चे स्कूल नहीं जाएंगे तो क्या करेंगे?
That's
What
depressing.
happens to the future? And the mentees that I'm working with in Commitment to Kashmir right now, fabulous, fabulous kids. They are mostly in their 20s. They are all born into conflict. For them, having a soldier and a sandbank, a soldier in fatigues with a gun in his hand, is normal. Every 10 yards under every third tree is one soldier posted. That is so normal that for the first time, when two of them came to Bangalore, and I went to pick them up from the airport. These were two girls, so their parents were very worried sending them out. And I said, "Don't worry, they'll stay with me." So then there was some relief. So I went to pick them up. One of the girls actually turned around and told me, "Ma'am, you never told us how unsafe Bangalore is." So I said, "Why? I mean, it's as safe, much." She says, "Nee, Srinagar is much safer than this." So I said, "Why do you say that?" She says, "Aapke yahan to एक भी military दिखाई नहीं दे रही."
Hmm.
And then how do you explain to a person that we are so safe that we don't need soldiers about us? Uh, it's just a different reality. So, we have lost thread now. What were we talking about?
No, no. So I wanted to ask you I mean, this is sort of depressing what you said, but it also, yeah, gives like a different perspective of the world altogether.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they have internalized militarization. It's the most heavily militarized corner in the world. Okay,
Mm.
and
Mm.
so they have accepted the military, because they're so used to it. It's like their chinar trees and their apple it's like a part of their
Fabric
whatever that you
itself, yeah.
see. Yeah, yeah, it's a part of their it's yeah.
Correct.
uh,
So,
and
actually, matlab, not digressing much, but coming back to the commitment to Kashmir part. So, I wanted to understand you said you connected with lot of partners on ground.
hmm.
So, was there any criteria to pick these artisans, or they were handpicked, or like,
Yes, they were
matlab,
handpicked. I wasn't a part of the process, so I was hired much later when they needed design intervention.
Hmm.
In Laila and Shruti, and so Shruti heads she's the chief coordinator for the project, and
Hmm.
she's based out of Delhi. And so there's a team, and Yasir is the ground coordinator in Srinagar. He's a part of CDI, and so they actually, I think. Put an ad out, or I don't know, put something out in Kashmir, and they had over 2,000 entries, and then they shortlisted and finally had a workshop, and from that work in Delhi, and from that workshop in Delhi, they shortlisted further, and in the second cohort. So the first cohort they had, I think, 15 or 16 people that they had worked with, but after the flood, only four of them continued. The rest of them actually had lost so much. People had lost their homes and just about everything in the flood. And why the flood was a turning point in their lives is because it wasn't like a flood that you see anywhere in India. The water, Srinagar is a valley, it's like a bowl. the water stayed for 3 weeks. It didn't rain out like other floods, places flood, and in like maybe max 4 days, 5 days, you're back on dry ground and you can start building again. This, the water stayed stagnant at 26 feet height. I know friends whose homes right up to the attic were flooded and they had to be rescued in helicopters and boats and things like that. And they, it soaked right to the foundation of their homes. So they had to rebuild from scratch. And so I think that was a huge turning point. And with these mentees that Commitment to Kashmir had taken the first time round, those people had to build their homes, their lives, their businesses, everything. So craft was the last thing on their minds. So only 3 or 4 of them managed to continue with the inputs that were given to them. And the rest of them actually had to do other work. Somebody has a medical shop. Quite a few of them have got trauma and issues of depression. They have psychological issues post flood, so they are not capable of doing work. One of them has disappeared. He's a missing person right now post flood. So Pintu Kashmir had its share of woes also from the incidents that were unfolding in the valley. So then when they started their second cohort, they didn't have money and they needed somebody to invest. And no one is willing to look at Kashmir,
As an,
even
yeah,
for
to
their CSR.
invest, yeah.
Yeah, even for funding or CSR, nobody wants to work in the valley. In that sense, I think Titan has been quite the pioneer to have faith in a project like this and to set aside a fairly large amount of money for a 2 year intervention. And because of that, Shruti and Laila and whoever it was who was planning this whole thing, they could actually scale. And they said instead of looking at 10 artisan entrepreneurs, why don't we look at 30?
Hmm.
So they shortlisted out of these 200 odd people. They finally shortlisted 30. The only criteria they had was these people had to have some connection to craft within their homes and neighborhoods.
Hmm. Hmm. Cool. And you also said that they employ further also. So these
Yes,
sort of
so
people, what are their skill sets in general? I mean, I was going to ask you what are the challenges, but after listening to this thing, I would say not in terms of the daily life
hmm.
sustaining challenges, but generally, if there is 5 to 10 artisans or these 30 people, what sort of profile do they have? Do they have like factories or small textile setup?
So
And
no, so they are. I would say it's varied. So we had absolute novices. For example, one of my mentees is Inshada, who's now a very, very eager, a very what should I say, committed entrepreneur right now. She's really pushing her brand out. It's a joy to see her function right now. She was a student of CBI. She was doing her master's in craft management, and she hadn't even passed out of the college when she was chosen by Commitment to Kashmir. And
Hmm.
she comes from a family of carpet traders, but her whole thing was she wanted to take up a craft that is most common and so fetches the least amount of money. And so, how does she work in a craft like that where she can enhance the income of these people who earn a pittance for that particular skill, which is chain stitch embroidery? She knew
Hmm.
nothing of chain stitch embroidery, but she had access to artisans and and then she had this craft management. So on one side is her, and then you have people like Aslam, who's been a coppersmith all his life and has run his coppersmithy business all his life, and he's a
Hmm.
seasoned sort of artisan. So
Hmm.
we had varied people. So with someone like Aslam, with Inshada, I would say in business terms, Inshada was the startup level, whereas Aslam was at a ramp up level.
Hmm.
So we had
Okay, okay.
yeah.
And so how do, like, what are their main challenges in terms of when they're making a product, to design, to market, to reach out, to connect? what are like how does commitment to Kashmir help these artisans in a very broad sense, because detail में तो मतलब बहुत nuances रहेंगे. हाँ.
बहुत है. No, I'll tell you that in a very broad sense, the largest thing is access to market. One is access to market to source the right material for work to work in, and two is access to market to sell. And commitment to Kashmir that way has been a fabulous bridge. In Kashmir, when you work in Kashmir, where, unlike other geographies, even simple stuff like cotton duck fabric that is dyed properly, poplin nahi milta, anchor dhage nahi milte, button buckles, zips of good quality nahi milta, copper is of very poor quality, and then you don't have the right tools. They are sitting with Adam ke zamane ka sewing machines and whatever else, because I told you they're like frozen in time, whereas the rest of the world has moved on. In that sense, C2K has been so good. They not only gave them design, we were all there to give design input, of course, but then C2K felt that design is one thing. So an embroiderer can embroider the most beautiful pieces, but there's a huge gap in tailoring skills in the valley. So they actually got some of these craft mentees, these C2K mentees to Delhi, and at NIFT, they gave them like state of the art training in tailoring. So in garment construction, in bags, and working with leather, so those sort of skills. Then made sure that they were given the right kind of machinery and equipment, gave them access to the right kind of resources in Delhi, Bangalore, Calcutta, wherever it is that they could source, so they could source their raw material from. So like Tariq, who's a Sozni embroiderer I work with, Sozni was always limited to shawls and stoles in wool. And we started doing embroidery on khadi saris. And that's a game changer because nobody has done that. And then you can reach out to markets in tropical south, in hot and humid east. It's no longer limited to Delhi winters. You know what I'm saying? So, and
Yeah.
then the other thing commitment to Kashmir did was actually took up stalls in various crafts bazaars and at various events and had these people come and sell themselves. So they managed to travel outside in Kashmir for the first time and see what a market looks like and interact with clients directly.
Wow. It's so inspiring and so fascinating to know, and I can barely imagine the empowerment these people might be getting because of
Absolutely.
such a situation.
Just the freedom, no, just that thing of stepping out into the outside world is amazing. I'll tell you another small incident. Like last year, when the Design Up, I think we met at the Design Up in November
Yes,
last year. Remember? And
yes,
there
yes,
was this commitment to Kashmir stall,
correct.
and there were these two young Kashmiri artisan entrepreneurs there. And the guy, for the first time, he's only been to Delhi. He hadn't been anywhere else in India. And I keep telling people, because I'm from fancy South, I keep saying Delhi is not India. You have to actually travel. And India is so different. आप दिल्ली गए इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आपने देश देख लिया. Come
Correct.
to Bangalore, go to Kerala, go to Calcutta, see other places. So this boy came, and at the Design Up conference, there were those bikes, Yulu, or one of those bikes that you could hire. Those, I don't know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
somebody,
bounce types.
bounce types, correct.
Yeah.
So he has never seen something like this in his life. So he said, कोई भी ले जा सकता है. I said, हाँ कोई भी. तो चोरी हो गई तो I said, कोई नहीं चोरी करता. So then, their phones weren't working because, there was a phone ban in Kashmir. So when they came to Bangalore, their phones weren't working. So I gave my phone, and then he took the bike all over the place, and he came back. He was like a free bird, and even at home, I had to tell him, go wherever you want, but come back at dusk. Bangalore's absolutely safe, but you look and talk like a Kashmiri man, and I don't know, I can't you're under my care. So I
Hmm.
just want to be doubly cautious.
Correct,
Then
correct.
very smartly, he came back one day and he said, now I don't have to depend on you because I have gone and bought a local SIM. Ab dekho, mera phone bhi kaam kar raha hai. And he was very proud. So we were also, I thought this is really good. And the whole day, he's 20 something, huh?
Hmm, hmm,
And
hmm.
so he was busy on his phone, WhatsApp, sending pictures, ye, wo, falana, tikana. In 24 hours, that SIM stopped working because as his ID proof, he had given his Aadhaar card and they probably traced it to Kashmir. And that was it. His Bangalore SIM was blocked.
Oh God.
So,
Terrible, terrible.
but we laughed about it. And he says, I'm so impressed. But look at the boy. He says, I'm really impressed. Systems are working.
Hmm. That's
So,
the positive spin to the thing. But
mm,
if you can also tell, like, are there any indigenous products designed and produced in Kashmir? I mean, the tons of, but any particular which gives a unique character and also empowers these artisans?
I think so. Locally, what really sells, and it's a thriving industry which won't sell anywhere outside India, is the use of wicker work. They have this particular willow wicker that grows along their lakes and rivers, and they make these kangris, which are these small sort of, I don't even know what it is. It's like a little basket in which they have a terracotta pot with wood filings, and it's burnt so that coal is, those embers are on the whole day, and you put it inside your ferran and it keeps you warm. It's like an internal heater.
Hmm.
um, all of us use it in winter in Kashmir. So those kangris are, that market will never die out for them. That craft will never die out because locally it has to be bought and nothing can replace it.
Hmm. But are
um,
there any other things for in? I mean, like if we call Kashmir as a small bubble in itself, then anything which is worth exporting to outside India, as in like outside, not just outside India, but outside Kashmir, which is more towards utility as opposed to the craft or the, because like a typical middle class living in a metro has this perception ना कि वहाँ पे handicraft ही मिलता है. तो
हाँ
दैट्स व्हाई
हाँ
दिस क्वेश्चन कि कुछ यूटिलिटी ड्रिवन है क्या?
बहुत सी चीजें हैं, बहुत सी चीजें हैं, बिकॉज दे handcraft and put beauty and aesthetics into every little thing. Like if you go to a local knife maker who's just making chaku churis to be used in the kitchen, so they have spoons, ladles, knives, bartans, trambis, samovars. They have their kitchen equipment suited for different things. So your meat knives, depending on what meat you are cutting, is different. You have your vegetable knives, which are different from the meat knives, but depending on what type of vegetable you're cutting, and they're so beautifully made, and it's the same thing with nutcrackers, with very everyday things. And you when I look sometimes, and you just chance upon it in somebody's kitchen because they just use it as everyday stuff.
Hmm.
And then you're like, wow, what is this? And they laugh at you and say, this one says wow to everything. She goes outside, she sees a dandelion flower and says, wow, so beautiful. Ye to ghas hi hai. Wo to
Hmm.
seb hi hai, But
Yeah.
I'm like going wow at everything. So there are many, many products, but I would think, you know, we only know carpet weaving in terms of those uber expensive silk on silk, Kashmiri fine Persian carpets. But
Hmm.
there are some really beautiful, earthy, everyday carpets that they use for themselves, which are also handmade out there. There are these oh, floor mats made out of this particular grass, which I think would look very nice. We buy similar stuff in IKEA or some of these other fancy brands, but the Kashmiris use it every day in their
Correct.
lives. They even
Hmm.
line their cow sheds with things like this.
Yeah. What they use regularly sounds very exotic to us, but yeah,
Us, yeah.
that's
For
the
them, it's every day. Yeah.
correct.
You know,
So on
simple stuff like at the end of every street, there's a nunwai, there's a baker. Okay. And
hmm,
that baker has his own tandoor, and the whole day he's baking all sorts of types of breads. Okay. And
hmm,
they have some 20-30 varieties of bread, and they drink tea the whole day, and they have different types of tea. So you begin your morning with nuncha, which is the salty tea, milky salty tea, and there's a particular bread that goes with it, which you sort of butter and then you dip in your tea and you eat. Then mid morning you have another tea. Then after lunch you have your kava for digestion. Then you have early evening you have what they call Lipton cha, which is your ordinary regular जो चाय अपन लोग पीते हैं ना वो वाली चाय.
hmm, hmm,
फिर
hmm,
रात को फिर से. And with each of these 5 or 6 teas that happen, there is a separate bread. There is a separate bake item that comes. And this happens every day in every street. And it's a way of life. And I'm thinking, then when I think back, Bangalore used to be like that in the 70s, you know. So we have lost a lot of our traditions in urban India and in most parts of India. But I think rural pockets and most of Kashmir still preserves it.
hmm. So the second last question which I have, I don't know whether it should be asked, but looking at the entire conversation, I can, if we can abstract or zoom out
Hmm.
more philosophically.
Hmm.
So Mumbai is like the financial capital of India, but it also has the biggest slum in Asia. तो जहाँ पे मतलब इतना अमीर है तो कोई गरीब हो रहा है, नहीं?
हाँ, हाँ.
मतलब फिलोसॉफिकल लेवल पे तो वैसी कश्मीर despite being in terror or disputes and a lot of what are not so happening situations for the last 7 decades, yet it is like the most beautiful thing or when it comes to design or craft. So how do you reconcile this thought कि मतलब what is your take on कि इतनी सुंदर जगह है but so scary. So
So there have been, I have had like multiple conversations over time with various people that I've worked with. And there's this one person who's a papier mache artisan, Hakim Saab, and he says that, you know, in the worst, in the peak of insurgency in the late 90s, he says it was his nakashi, it was his painting that took his mind off the ugliness that was happening outside. So he's like one of those absent-minded professors. I consider him an ustad. You know, he must be in his 70s, and so he has a hilarious take of everything. And whatever conversation we have, he will link it to some part of the Quran, then some Sufi something, then some real incident that happened. He'd connect many things together. Huh? And
mm,
he says that actually crafts have honed themselves into a fine skill during these last 3 decades of insurgency because people couldn't step out. And there was so much hangama happening outside that you wanted to meditate and zone in and cut that noise out. And so you went back to your skill. And so he says, पहले मैं एक ही type का chinar, you know, he used to make only one type of chinar pattern design. Now I have something like 30 variations in my leaves because that's all I could keep my mind occupied. Not to sell. It was a way to disengage with the outside world. That's something that he said. Somebody like Firdaus, who's an embroiderer, he lives in downtown Kashmir in Fateh Kadal. And that's, sorry, Nawabazar. That's where all the pathrav and the whatever, anything that has to, it's the tinder box. All action starts in front of Firdaus's house. There have been times when I've been stuck there because, you know, there's some encounter happening down the street or army has barricaded it and curfew has set off, you know, all sorts of things. And one day he was really listless and not doing his, not, we weren't getting anywhere with work. He was not, have, his tea was going cold. You could generally tell he wasn't happy. He wasn't settled. So I said, listen, let's go out for a walk. And I said, you show me your part of Srinagar. And this is something I do all the time because then I get to see places through people's eyes. And so then we walked down the street that he's walked down from when he was a child. And he pointed out and he said, my Fufi used to live here and she used to make the most beautiful ferrans. My somebody else, he took me and we crossed the river Jhelum. And then he took me to, he said, मैं आपको एक खास जगह दिखाऊंगा जहां आप पहुंचोगे तो आपको बस सुकून ही मिलेगा. You won't get anything else. You will only find sukoon. Even if you want to find anything else, you won't be able to seek it. And he took me to this school, this Khanka, this of Shah Hamdan. It's also got Shah Hamdan's shrine. And Syed Shah Hamdani came from Persia in the 13th or 14th century, and he's the patron saint of all crafts in Kashmir. So he came to propagate in Islam, and he found that when he was meeting the uh, poorest of poor and the most downtrodden, they were where they were because they weren't able to earn an income. So he brought Persian artisans with him and taught the crafts of Persia, the arts of Persia, to these people. And that's how these crafts have come to be in Kashmir, and which is why their visual link is more with Central Asia and Persia than with India. And so I go to this place, and I've been there many times before, but when that day, that afternoon, I was seeing it through Firdoz's eyes, and he said, when there's curfew and patrav and this and that and shelling and tear gas and what have you, and my mind is really disturbed, I just come and sit here, and the insides, women can't step in, so I could see only from the outside. The entire Kanka is covered with tiles of papier mache, and the walls, floor, ceiling, staircase, trellis, windows, everything is crawling with texture and art uh, out of papier mache. And so he sits there and he says he just spends a couple of hours doing nothing, just sitting inside there. And then he says his heart lightens and he comes back and he's able to then take on the world. So people, um, and he says then he just gets into his work and time stands still. He says he can blank everything out. So constantly I hear this thing of people actually resort to their craft to shut things outside out.
I'm speechless actually.
So, in fact, my entire collection with him that I
Mm.
did, I created very ordinary, um, you know, uh, commercially viable bags and pouches and cushions and stuff with
Mm.
him using his skill of embroidery, crewel work.
Mm.
And all the motifs were evolved from the geometric tessellations that were there inside Shanshah, Khanqa of Shamdan, from the interiors of that mosque. And the other thing that he said was, because he stays in this house where sometimes they're shut out for months together, they can't even step out. So Kashmiris have become so resilient and self-reliant that every house grows its own vegetables, grows its own fruit, and at any given point they have 6 months worth of rations available in house, because forget encounters and emergencies, winter shuts them out often. There have been weeks when there's no petrol or kerosene or anything to be had because the tunnel, that the pass is shut, the Jawahar tunnel. And so these people that way are very, very self reliant, and they practice their craft at a far more personal, what should I say,
Expression, yeah.
it's a more internalized experience for them than an external market driven one.
And that's why I think it's so beautiful. In fact, this conversation is going to put me in a lot of introspection when I listen to it again. Um all right, I think Devika, I mean, like just given the time, it's so fascinating to hear so many aspects about Kashmir. I wish we can do like multiple episodes, but just on a concluding note for this commitment to Kashmir. So, what's the future like? It's a very lame question because with Kashmir, you can't even predict tomorrow. But you have been working on some project. If you can tell about that, and then how are things shaping up in today's time, and is there any roadmap ahead?
For commitment to Kashmir, inshallah, it'll be successful because I think the world is opening up and you can't keep a place shut out for that long, no?
Hmm.
So there will be a way out. And I think now that people have realized that there's a way out and there are markets outside, um, dying for Kashmiri crafts. And a project like Commitment to Kashmir has done away with middlemen, so to speak. So people are directly accessing buyers and clients, and clients can directly access artisans. I think the way forward, I only see hope and ever optimistic, but I only see hope and positivity. It can only succeed. It's not going to go back.
Hmm.
And Commitment to Kashmir itself started its own commercial platform called Zaina, and they are selling a lot of the artisan products online themselves and participating in exhibitions and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I just hope it continues and just grows from strength to strength.
Hmm.
um, I'll keep helping uh, whatever help is required. That is, that's a
Great,
given, and Shruti knows it.
great,
so,
great.
but right now, I'm not that engaged in commitment to Kashmir because
Mm-hmm.
my time we had signed up for a 2-year contract and that's over. So
Okay.
officially, I'm not working there, but unofficially, of course, always available. I'm
Mm-hmm.
right now, I've taken on a full time commitment in another very interesting, what should I say, scenario. I'm heading a handloom startup in a small town called Yemiganur in Andhra.
Okay.
And there's a huge focus right now suddenly on handloom. So many sari portals have come up and so many sari connoisseurs have come up. Everybody is into weaving or celebrating some weave or the other. I see on Facebook every day some 5 new people have adopted some weaver cluster somewhere. And it's fantastic that there is this reawakening to handloom, at least in the country. But we forget that for every one sari weaver that we find, it's like a pyramid, no? If the
Hmm.
one sari weaver is at the apex of the pyramid with his fine skills and earning a higher income, compared to the rest of the weavers, there are at least 10 at the base of the pyramid, 10 to 12 at the base of the pyramid, who can
Hmm.
only weave sackcloth, lungis, towels, bed sheets, and other coarse count stuff. Okay.
Hmm.
And while all of us are focusing on saris, and more saris, Banarsi, Paithani, Ilkal, Falana, Thikana, jo bhi ho, um, what happens to your तौलिया, बेडिंग, दैट काइंड ऑफ,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
वो
Hmm.
कहाँ जाएंगे? उनका क्या होगा?
Correct.
आप 10 की देखते हो और 100 की जिंदगी का कोई नहीं देख रहा. So I've been fortunate that I've been given this project where I have to address those at the bottom of the pyramid. And this
Hmm.
is Yemignur is right in that I call it the cotton belt, no? From Vidarbha, if you draw a line across India, हम पूरा Karnataka में, Andhra में, there's this one chunk, North Andhra, North Karnataka, South Maharashtra, cotton growing belt.
Hmm.
And it's abject poverty, suicide, crazy debt, all the social evils that you can, socioeconomic evils that you can put into a geography. We've taken it all and put it into this little region. And so I'm working in that region right now. And Yemignur is by and large a weaving town. It's not a village, it's a town. And
Mm.
in the 1930s, one of the master weaver families there uh, had the vision to actually get the weavers together and set up a cooperative. So Machani Somappa set up this cooperative in 1931 or 32, and he was the first Padma Shri awardee. You know, he was the first person to receive a Padma Shri, and the Yamignur Cooperative Society was well known across the country for its fine cotton towels and bed sheets and stuff. So he didn't think of converting them into sari weavers or fine count or anything. He just took whatever they had and sort of brought them together, set the business process correctly, and connected them to markets and helped them sell. So this little geography was thriving till liberalization happened and till the state government took over the cooperative society from privately owned. It was a society owned by the weavers till then. And then, to nobody's fault, I mean, I'm not saying the government or anything, whatever, it just went pear shaped, and there was embezzlement and some pata nahi kya kya. And it sort of one entire generation of weavers now, since the 90s till now,
Mm.
um, they are barely managed. They're just living. Okay, they are not alive. They're living. So they earn 14 rupees is the labor that they earn from the cooperative for a towel, and they can weave about 6 towels a day. So
$6
that's
a
like
week,
a day.
a
So
day.
that's like 80, 90 rupees a day.
Mm.
A bed sheet weaver earns 45 rupees for his labor for weaving an entire bed sheet. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
So, and the thing is that the weaver is also not thinking because he's getting his free rations from the government. So ये नहीं कि वो भूखा मर रहा है तो वो कुछ करे अपने लिए उसके उसके लिए उसका बेसिक खाना तो आ रहा है. The cooperative is providing him, or whoever, even if it's master weavers from other towns, they're providing him with um, his cotton. They are putting his walk from. All he has to do is run the shuttle up and down. Everything else, somebody else is taking care of for him. The whoever his employer is, but that employer is doing it at the cost of something. So रिपेयर कुछ रिपेयर करना है तो हाँ हाँ मैं आपका रिपेयर कर लूंगा, but it will be cut against your wages. And
Mm.
that has added up, and each of these weavers has a debt of at least 40 to 60,000, at least. And their whole life they're not going to be able to get out of that. But they're not questioning it because they're not hungry. They're not able to get out of their situation because there is a B grade market that will buy their 50 rupees ka towel, you know. So
Mm.
it's a strange catch 22 situation because they at one point wove the best of home linen, and now they're making bed sheets for the railways. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
here we are saying, अरे हम सबको employment दे रहे हैं, उनको इतना order है कि वो कुछ नहीं कर सकते. But what are you getting the guy to weave? You're just giving him white kora kapda to weave when he's capable of doing so much more and earning so much more. You can't keep people at subsistent levels of income and then claim that at least they're earning something. Where is
Mm.
dignity of labor there? So,
So, what you're trying to do is it, if I'm reading it correctly,
huh,
it's more like a change the pyramid to make it like a honeybee kind of a network.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
So, how do we enhance income levels? How do we, what should I say, generate self worth? How do we get people to realize that they have magic in them?
Mm.
You all have magic in them. How is it that you're appreciating my magic and I'm not able to appreciate yours? Simple as that.
Correct,
So we
correct.
had a whole lot of Noor, in all the various streets that these weavers live in. There are about 3,900 weaver families in Yemignur, 10,000 handlooms. The next generation, very few are taking up weaving. Most of them have a college education. Most of them are coming to Kurnool and Bangalore and wherever else. Yemignur itself has a sister concern set up by the parent group that has set up my company, which provides IT solutions. So a lot of the weaver children are getting into IT, and then what happens to an occupation that has survived thousands of years and is absolutely viable?
I didn't like. I think we'll conclude on this note, but I can't stop asking you. Like,
Ask no
although
problem.
although you have highlighted like sort of the depressing situation that we are living in this country, so what keeps you happy? I mean, it's just the attitude, or now you have made peace with it?
Uh,
Mhm.
I don't think I'll ever make peace with it because then I'll stop working, no?
Yeah.
So what makes me happy is just it's this thing, no? When I see somebody realize the magic in them, that makes me happy.
Hmm. Happy, I would say more positive in
Absolutely.
approach. Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Absolutely. It's just that self-realization when that happens. So it's one thing, so even in my work, I never ever go with artworks. I never ever sort of design, unless it's a training module that I'm providing where somebody has to learn theory or technique, then we have to go with a certain set of parameters. But when it comes to design, it's always co-creation because the joy that I get when when that penny drops in the other person's head and says, oh, this is what she's been talking of all this while, अरे
Hmm.
मैं इसको दिखाती हूँ इससे like 3 गुना ज़्यादा, and then they do work which I could not even have dreamt of, and that's absolute joy. So if I'm
Beautiful.
it's just, so I keep telling people, when people say show us your work, I have no work to show. Nothing is mine. What to do?
Beautiful, beautiful. That's a very, I mean, that's the highest form of structure you can have. I am like short of words and I don't know how to
No,
conclude
but
this
it's
also.
true.
It's just that it has been a great experience listening to your insights, perspectives, stories, and I would like to have you again on AudioGAN. Maybe after this new project of yours takes some shape and there are
Sure,
a lot
sure.
of insights to be shared there.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to come back on board.
Cool,
We are
cool.
actually going to, this new project is going to be a game changer because we're not just addressing weavers. We've come to realize that the farmers too need help. And so the whole thing is about livelihoods in Yamignur. So we are going to go from cotton cultivation, best practices in indigenous organic cotton cultivation, vegetable, not vegetable, what should I say, organic plant based dyes,
Mhm.
hand spinning, so that at every point of the process, we generate livelihoods within that geography. So, from, like my colleague was saying, from farm to fiber to fabric to fashion to repurposing. So, we'll also have a buyback of your faded stuff, which we'll then repurpose into something else. And we are trying to see how we can do something that is so self contained that that geography, other than markets, it doesn't have to look outside itself for any other need.
Yeah. In fact, I've got the topic for the next talk with you, which
Oh,
is which is recycling and sustainability. What does it mean in the Indian context? It's
oh,
a yeah, yeah, it's a different I mean, we can like I don't know, maybe start from Gandhi's philosophy till date.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's the only way forward. What Gandhiji said about Panchayati Raj, about um, India should be in its multitudes. There should be
Hmm.
little Indias across the country that get together and form the larger whole.
Absolutely.
We are going in the reverse direction, but if because each geography is so different in its needs,
Hmm.
culturally, geographically, everything wise, weather wise, whatever. What a person in Kerala in a village needs is not what a person in Tamil Nadu or Karnataka or Kashmir needs.
No, but
So,
we are going in a reverse direction. But all the
absolutely.
power to you and people like you, so that we can hopefully at least be a resistance and not, मतलब, as the Kashmiri would say, inshallah, कि उल्टा प्रवाह शुरू हो जाए. but
हाँ,
we can
हाँ.
just hope for the best.
We can just hope for the best. We
Yeah,
can just work towards the best. That's it.
correct. All right. Thanks,
Thank,
Devika,
thanks a
for
lot. Yeah.
one. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All the best. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.